Welcome to the Intuitive Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Rafferty, medical doctor, PhD, Reiki, and shamanic intuitive healer. I'm here to bring you on a journey of holistic healing that explores the science of the physical body combined with mental and emotional well-being, energetic and spiritual health. And I am so excited today to be chatting about all things love with Conor Creighton, who has come to join us from sunny Spain. It's such a pleasure to have you here, Conor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Tony. It's very, very nice to meet you and be along this morning.
Oh, I'm just so excited to be able to have this conversation. We have been discussing a lot within the practice, within my client base, with my friends, on all the retreats that I go on. Everybody is kind of coming around to the concept of self-love, how it impacts us, and basically how it reflects out in the world around us, essentially. And now I've been following you online for some time. And you have your Hacking Love online course, you have your podcast, and I'm so excited to be taking part in the 30-day challenge that's coming up in June with regard to going on a journey with what self-love looks like and how to attract love into your life in all different forms. So I'm super excited to learn more about love, about you and how you found yourself coming to be the love coach, essentially.
Yeah, Tony, can I just say first off, it's so nice to meet you. You've got you know, when you have a kind of a relationship with someone online and then you kind of meet them first time, your energy is amazing. I did not expect this. It's really kind of a joy. I think it's the doctor part at the start that makes me think there's something serious going on. And you're just like you're light and energy and fun, and it's like, oh, okay.
Thank you so much. It's so funny, like I think on a journey with getting to here, being in the practice, some people come in and they like the fact that the doctor is in front of of the title. They're like, I believe what you do more because you've done medicine.
I get intimidated thinking, oh no, he's gonna ask me how long it's been since I've had bloods or something.
Yeah. Well, it's so gas because actually once someone comes through the door, it's I do health and medicine very differently. Like I just love kind of the more traditional approaches that have been around for tens of thousands of years prior to actually the Western medical model coming into play. And I think it's quite interesting because I still do a lot of online meetings with some of the groups that I'm with. And sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, we've lost touch of the person of we call them the patient, but like it's all about the connection with self and the interaction you're having with the other person. And I think if we can cultivate this beautiful safe space for people to explore themselves, that's where a lot of the healing I tend to find happens, actually. So it's so lovely that you've said that. I'm very, very grateful. And I suppose it brings us as a nice segue into actually like relational, um, I suppose, how we heal in relation to other people and how important it is to actually to sit within the energy of yourself and someone else and how that can bring us on a journey in itself.
Yeah, totally. I think I guess like a lot of my background would have been in Buddhism, and it one of the kind of the contemplative um I guess the contemplative kind of expressions of Buddhism is that the interconnectedness of all beings, the illusion of separation. And I know when I first started to meditate, that was quite theoretical for me. It wasn't really something that I was like, I definitely, I would see somebody full of judgment, I would see somebody do something and I would go like, oh, I would never do that. And then fast forward to 3 months and I'm doing that exact same thing. Or, very much like, oh, I'm better than this person or this person's better than me. We'll create hierarchies all the time. And I think it's just recently in the last few years that I have begun to kind of like maybe move a little bit away from what would have been a bit more of a lone wolf existence and kind of recognize, oh no, no, like we're on a team. We're on a kind of a healing team here, and you can't like go and just do it on your own. You got to come back. So I think a lot of the work that I've been doing recently is all about that idea of like can you actually really love another person, um uh, and like that feels like I think one of the hardest things that we're tasked with here on earth is actually loving other people.
I just love getting into these conversations. Like the journey of the lone wolf, I definitely find as people go on a spiritual journey or even a deep dive into themselves, I tend to find that people kind of deviate off the path into the lone wolf territory a lot of the time to do their internal work. And then when they start to come back and actually realize, oh my God, we were meant to be in community. And actually, some of the healing takes place in relation, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like this sort of it's the I think again it's like it's all about like the power of intimacy and this idea of when you kind of get close to someone, they see how much how many inconsistencies exist within you, and they see this struggle about, you know what I mean, like I present a certain image to the world, and it's an image that I am constantly trying to tear down and just be like, no, 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 I am not this person. I'm not this person. And, my partner gets to see how much of an asshole I am all the time. And that's like, it's an invaluable thing when she reflects that back to me in terms of, and I think that's the big healing, is getting that reflection back that, hey, like, you're not as good as you think you are.
Well, I was reading through some of your Instagram posts and I'd seen that actually you had a beautiful post up about meeting your partner, and you're like, this is the first time that I've actually been able to be authentically me in relation to someone else. And like it really, really touched me. Because sometimes I think when we're on this journey of, I suppose, self discovery or learning what it's like to actually be in real relation with other people and be authentically ourselves, with all the warts and craziness that goes on that we tend to keep under wraps a lot of our life, and it's so beautiful to actually read that in your post, and it touched me so deeply. I was like, this is so powerful to actually be fully seen by someone.
Yeah, 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 right, isn't it? It is powerful. And or to just have the I mean, this is coming back to the whole self-love thing that we sort of mentioned at the start too, Tony. This idea that, I think so many of us we leave our homes with a deep belief that there's something unlovable and something wrong about us. And I think that's just the vast majority of us have not had the parenting that we need. Not to say that all our parents were toxic, but there's just something about the the birth cycle and early months of a baby that they require like such phenomenal amounts of attention, and the way that the world is set up to not really support parents. You know what I mean? Like really, if we cared about people, um, parents would be supported so much more. And I mean that's going to come in the future, I'm sure, where we really kind of like make it easier for people to parent. But the fact of the matter is that I think most of us have grown up with parents who were disconnected from their own feelings, and were suffering with so much of the stress and tensions of modern life. And so we grow up with this belief that there's something unlovable about us. And then we go into relationship with that idea in mind. And when there's that idea in mind that there's something unlovable or something wrong about you, you perform in that relationship, which is again like kind of like you abandon yourself, right? And that's where the inauthenticity comes from. You take a quick cold read of this person, you go, oh, who do they want me to be? Oh, and then you perform that perfectly, yet something is rotting inside of you because you're not being yourself. And I know that like I like so much of my life and so much of my relationship life has been getting a very quick read of a partner and been, oh, they're into this kind of person, cool, I'll be that. And then slowly um just feeling so disconnected from who I really am, and like it's no fault of my partner, it's me. I've gone in pretending to be a certain type of man when I'm not. So what I like kind of in my current relationship is that I think I'm pretty much who I am. I mean, I think my partner would love it if I wasn't always who I am. She'd be like, maybe you could people please a little bit more. It might be nice. but, um, but yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the work that I do is like really, really encouraging people to have the bravery to just be who they are, and then
Hmm.
see, see how the chips land.
Yeah. Oh, everything you're saying just resonates so deeply with me. It's quite fascinating. Like, I volunteer at the National Maternity Hospital here in Dublin with all these beautiful women that come through the door on Fridays. And I worked there for a good amount of time too. And
No way.
it's so funny because there's just so many people coming through the doors having babies. But the support, like you were saying from the get go,
Yeah,
can be so lacking. And it's interesting because in some of my sessions here, when we go into the energy of where some of the deepest root wounds on an emotional level were originating from, some of them are even, we can trace it back through the energy even to how a mother or a unit was interacting during the pregnancy,
yeah.
and whether the baby felt wanted or whether the adult perceived that they weren't wanted, even in utero.
Totally. Like, and Tony, you mentioned that you do shamanic work. I remember like the first time I ever took ayahuasca, I went back. I had an experience. I had an hallucinogenic experience where I was back inside my mother's womb, and I could just feel all of her anxiety and her worry, like kind of penetrating me in this like deep hallucinogenic state. And it was really, I was like, fuck, this is where it all comes from. Like, my poor mother was anxious at the time. Yeah.
Well, it's wild. Some people have found themselves in situations where they feel, or the energy of not being wanted was there from the time that they were in the womb. And we're tracing this back, and then actually even going further back in the family lineage to look at the patterns that resided within some of the relational settings, or it's just quite fascinating. And especially in Ireland, there's so much wounding that comes from obviously the heavy emphasis on Catholicism and shame, and what it was like to fall pregnant outside of wedlock, and kind of babies being given away. And we have such a dense energy of shame within the Irish lineage. And it's quite fascinating because when people come through the door and we start getting into the really nitty gritty root of a lot of this stuff, you tend to find that a lot of the low self-worth or the low value stems from really, really early on. And when I speak to, one of my friends had a baby over in New Zealand, and they were an inpatient in a space that had lactation consultants, support for breastfeeding. It was almost like a community like setting to support a new mother with her first time baby. And I suppose back in the day, like, we used to have babies in community where there was support from other people to show you how it was done. Because even like my sister's about to have her third baby, but every time you have a new baby, it's like you never had the baby before. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like the brain has washed away the trauma of sleepless nights and the pain of breastfeeding and all the things that go with that to allow you to do it again. And so it's like all this stuff kind of rewrites itself, and you get into the loops and the cycles within the family lineage. And it's just mind boggling because then, of course, adults come through to me because they're having repeating patterns within their relationships. They're drawing in partners that are emotionally unavailable, is one thing that I hear so often. And when I'm sitting with this, I'm kind of thinking, well, what parts of ourselves are unavailable to others too, you know? What's your kind of journey with your clients? Do you see that this is a common trait that presents itself?
I think most of us only want love at a kind of theoretical level. I think deep down, none of us really want love because we're so terrified of it, actually. And so I meet lots and lots of clients and kind of, sorry, it was a big, I tend to exaggerate. Not none of us want love, but a lot of us don't want love. Um, like I meet a lot of my clients and they're just, oh, like, I'm meeting this pattern, I'm meeting this pattern, and I kind of go, maybe you just don't want love, actually. Maybe that's what it comes down to. Maybe it's too terrifying for you to be in love. So it's more, what's more useful for you is to just fall into relationship with people who can never give you love. Um, and I think it's that, I mean, I know this experience too. Like, I have loved being in relationship, but actually loving someone and actually feeling that someone loves me has was a terrifying feeling in my body. It still kind of is. The feeling that, I can ask for help and that help is given to me, like, it, that rattles me to the core. It totally does. Like, when my partner is like, she's like super technical. You know what I mean? She can just do things with computers, like in Photoshop and InDesign. She's just brilliant at all these things, and they're things that stress me out. And like, I'll ask her to help me with something, and she'll just do it, and I'll dance around like a little puppy dog because I'm just. No, it's sort of the way that I've been conditioned and programmed is just not to expect that anything gets done for me. So, so there's a big fear around love for me, and a big fear around trusting another person. I mean, if you think about it, Tony, like the big thing about love is like, oh, I'm deciding to now trust you, and I'm deciding to like take down a lot of my guards and trust you, and I'm going to be super vulnerable, and now you're going to know all about it, and you're going to have all this information that you could use against me. and, and and I think a lot of us are would rather be in control than be in love. And that's the problem, right? Because you know yourself, Tony, like kind of love to a certain extent, much like all of these shamanic experiences, it's all about letting go of control. Um, None of us really want to let go of control because the last time we let go of control, we were a little baby and it was so terrifying. Um,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, like this. Yes, this is totally so on point. So last week we recorded a podcast about control and powerlessness. And it was so interesting because I was discussing it with the psychotherapist that works in the practice. She's this absolutely gorgeous soul, works very energetically like I do. And she was like, and we got deeper and deeper and deeper into this chat about control and powerlessness. And she was like, but it all comes back to trust, Tony. And you have just put those two things together so perfectly there. You've just hit the nail on the head with regard to actually what does trust look like, and how do you bring your clients, the people you work with, on a journey with trust, and to actually lean into that overwhelming fear of letting yourself be loved. It's so bloody scary.
Yeah, well, it's all about, you see, I think like kind of like the trust that we have in a relationship, in a partnership, is like a particle of the trust that we're learning to develop in the universe in general. Like I think everything about our life and our energetics, it's and everything that is reflected back to us is a sort of a statement on the level of trust that we have. You know, those of us who say follow our dreams are those of us who've managed to develop a certain amount of trust in the world in general. We're like,
Mm,
depending on your perspective, you might have come out of childhood with the idea that the world is a kind of a dumpster fire, and around every corner there's a rabid dog that might bite your ankles. Or alternatively, you might have come out of childhood with this idea that the world is just a big feather blanket and you can run out of money. It doesn't matter. Someone will take care of you. And you fall in love because you're so lovable and everything will work out for you and you will just put yourself at every table because you'll just think I belong. So it's about, for me, I think it's all about like moving in the direction of not just trusting partners, but just trusting the universe in general. And the way that you do that is you test the universe. Like that's how you develop trust. You test the universe by sort of going, okay, well, what do I want? Okay, I want this. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get that. And then I want this. And then I want this. And at the same time you're going, and I don't want this. And I don't want this. So I think it's a combination of developing the confidence to set boundaries. And this is the big Irish problem because it means like stepping out of obligation and guilt. So many of our relationships are all based on, well, you have to do this because it's family. You have to do this because they did it for you.
mm,
That's bullshit. Like, we don't have to do anything we don't want to do, and we're not responsible for how anybody else feels. You can live a life where you are just connected to how you feel about something in that moment, and if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
mm,
And the same, so when you start to protect yourself like that, um, you free up all this energy to then go, okay, well, what do I actually want to do with my time? What people do I want to spend time with? Who do I want to share myself with? And as you do that, just your trust, when you can learn to protect yourself, your trust just develops because you're like, okay, I've got me. And then you start to
mm,
take these risks in the world. All of us have a sort of a secret dream. We all have some sort of song that we're supposed to play in this life. And when you
mm,
trust yourself and you go, oh shit, okay, so I'm going to maybe start to do this thing now. And you start to do that and you see that you suddenly get supported and nature comes on your side and you see synchronicities and people just start to come out of the woodwork going like, oh, you want to sing? I have a recording studio. You never meant, all these things start to happen. And then you kind of, you keep building on that trust and you build on that trust. And before you know it, like magical things are happening in your life.
mm.
Um,
I love
I
this.
think that,
You're literally speaking to my heart listening to you. I'm like, yes, that's why you're the love coach. Because I love everything you're saying. My heart is just like, yes, 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 yes.
yeah,
It's so, it is wild because I suppose the further you get into this journey, then you learn more about yourself and you can actually more clearly identify what you want and don't want.
totally. Yeah, totally. And I think Tony, like I'm sure you've had experience of this too, or else you wouldn't be doing this work. But coming to the place where you realize, oh, I actually get to choose
Yes,
is that's
yes.
phenomenal.
Yeah. Because we grow up in a society that just tells you what to do now. Like that's what it is. You're ferried down these pathways that we're literally it blows my mind on the day to day because when you think about it, it's just groups of people being put down these lines of you do this, you do this, you do this, and then we're kind of going, okay. And it kind of shuts down this innate knowing in our soul that we actually have skills and gifts that are so unique to us that we don't have to fit in with this group or that group or the other that we've actually been conditioned to believe we need to fit into.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah,
Like everything you were saying there about freeing up the energy, I'm like yes to this because we are so busy all the time and the energy flows where the intention goes. So
yeah,
if we're putting our intention into something that does not ignite our heart or our soul, and so many people come through to me, they're like, I just feel dead inside of no energy. And I'm like, but what do you do? Are you following any passion, any joy? Is there any love in your life with
yeah.
regard to just your day-to-day activities?
Yeah, and there's also like Tony, like there's something like kind of this 30-day challenge thing that I'm doing. The first week is
Mm,
basically like say no to everybody and everything and just do nothing for the first week. And like and just get your nervous system back down to some sort of regulated state. And then like start to listen to the intuitions that are coming up. But you know the way Tony, like kind of if you this is the thing that I think is really important is like if you are not doing what you want,
mm,
you're probably doing what somebody else wants.
mm,
And it's just something about there's a kind of a parasitic vibe in humans where there's many of us who just um, don't believe that we can be empowered and autonomous as individuals. And so we kind of like feed off each other. And so you have so much of this like internal manipulation going on between humans and this and guilt and obligation and things
mm,
like this. And that's just draining all of our energies.
mm,
I think this big idea, or what I believe is like, hey, everyone's okay.
mm,
We're all okay, and we can all do it
mm,
on our own.
mm,
And once you realize it's this victim energy, you know what I mean? And we have it in bucket loads in Ireland.
mm.
This sense that like we can't actually do things on our own. You
Yes.
know and within reason, you know what I mean? And I think we like it's not our fault that we have this, but it's time that we took responsibility for the fact that it exists inside of us, this victim energy. This energy that
Mm,
would always make us feel more comfortable when we're small,
mm.
kind of like the quietest voice in the room,
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. I
right?
like, I love this. Yeah. Because I suppose there's safety when you're in the huddle, and what's coming to mind, the penguins who all huddle together
Yeah,
when they have their babies.
yeah,
Like, it's so interesting because actually to step outside the group or the box
yeah,
that everybody's kind of huddling in, where there's that sense of safety, it's actually like, well, how do I find safety in my own body to actually
yeah,
step out into this space? Do I feel safe in being fully seen as well,
yeah,
and it's just so scary.
yeah. How did you do that?
Do you know, it was probably baby steps like the little penguins just shuffling away. Because I think, you know, I was definitely part of the masses, felt safe just doing what everybody else did. And
Yeah,
when that is the case, you can't see the light, the diamond that's in your heart. You can't see that, because it's been overshadowed by louder voices and wounded energies all around you that just, uh,
yeah,
you know, crowd out your light. And it's about what on my journey was just taking a little step by step approach of healing those wounds in myself, that actually the big wounded energies. And I'm still on the journey of the wounded masculine and what that looks like and how it shows up with everybody. And, recognizing actually who wrote the bloody rules? Like, who wrote the rules here?
yeah,
Why can't I write my own rules? And as you take the little step out and you kind of go, oh, actually, it, you know, it's okay. I'm finding safety within my body here, and my light is growing within my heart space. That it's okay for people to see that. And when my light starts to shine, other people's lights start to shine, and they start to go, actually, why am I in the dark here in the group? It's almost like people who've woken up and remembered the true essence of their heart and soul can help other people to remember that they have an authentic, beautiful gift that they can share with the world. So as each person wakes up, it helps other people to remember the true essence of their soul too. Does that make sense?
well, yeah, totally. Like, it's also sort of, I mean, so much of the work involves this, like, going back and teaching what you just learned. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, I think like that's the whole path. Like, you learn a little kind of another little trick, and then immediately, and this is also the problem with the path because we all turn into preachers. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I do.
But the spiritual world is that if someone's like 5 minutes ahead of you on the path, they're like, "Oh, look, I'll be your guru. Look, come on, let me be the guru." So, I don't know. It's there's a certain excitement and a kind of a naivety, isn't there, that we learn
Yeah.
something and then I remember first time I ever did Vipassana, for example, you know what I mean? I was out in bars, sober in bars, talking to all my friends who, were going to the bathroom to do bag and stuff like this and coming back and telling them all about meditation and the breath and stuff. And nobody wanted to listen. I was just the most annoying person in the world.
It is. It's funny because when you're going through those major shifts and changes, but you're still there's elements of your old life and your old being that still reside within your current world. And it's kind of like,
Yeah.
when you're standing there talking about these magical transformative experiences you've had at your past retreat for 10 days. And everybody's just like, yeah, 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 with their drink and their bits and pieces. It's just like, actually, what the hell is going on here?
I know. I know.
It's a
Yeah.
wild ride. Like it is crazy. But I do feel like as healers, I think as people who coach each other with the journey of remembering, I think we have a huge responsibility to actually go deep and heal our own wounds, you know, because I
Yeah.
think we can only show up to help people uh, to the extent at which we've actually helped to heal ourselves. And when I was earlier on, kind of when I first started dip my toe in the water of like energy and spiritual healing, I was going to loads of different healers. And now I look back and think to myself, oh my God, I was letting so many people into my energy field that I know now, you know, probably hadn't done the deeper work to be able to hold the vibrational frequency of or even understand the extent of what we are doing as healers, as energy workers. The power of the universal energy far exceeds what we can even comprehend sometimes with our human minds. We're doing we're working with really powerful energies, and it's so important to go as deep into your journey as possible to be able to hold that for other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, Tony, I think like they hold it for us in a
Yes.
way. I often kind of like when I'm doing workshops, I go, hey, like, you know, I feel like we've all been doing this for years and years and years in different lives, and it's just my turn to be the guy who presses play on the timer this lifetime. Do you know, like I often feel like if um all of the conversations that I have with people or the workshops that I hold, like it's about my healing. And yeah, I'm apparently holding space, but I also feel they're holding space for me to live out this fantasy of being the guy who does this sort of work, which heals what all my need for validation and approval and having a spotlight and being like semi famous. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really feel like there's a certain like I think when we all die and we're all like in the kind of the debriefing space in the sky and like we all run into each other and they'll be like, oh, did you like what we did for you by coming to your workshops and like liking your Instagram posts and things like this? Did you enjoy all the healing work we did for you?
Oh my God, I love this. I'm very excited for that event. I hope I'm invited.
You'll be there, Tony. You'll be
Oh,
there.
it's going to be good. We'll talk about the podcast episode we did. But it's so interesting because my clients are my biggest teachers. Like they teach me on a day-to-day basis how to go deeper into empathy and compassion. And sometimes the medical system beats that out of you because you're like, oh, such and such a person's come in, and it's funny because you start to view people as numbers and problems rather than actually the essence of their soul.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's beautiful what you were just saying there. Actually, people that come through the door, every single client that comes through here teaches me a different lesson. And I talk about same as you holding space for them, but it's so interesting because you go on deep journey of self-discovery while they hold space for you too. It's a symbiotic relationship.
totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so magic. So I really love all of this discussion surrounding kind of our personal journeys with love and how things have changed, even from early wounding and how we're becoming more aware of these wounds and traumas as we get older in our generation. Uh, and so, what do you think as we move forward as a generation of people who are doing work healing our sense of love for self? What do you think that will look like with regard to relation or relationships moving forward?
Yeah, this the I think we're moving out of like the love that most of us have known has been transactional love. The love that we grew up with, and most, unless like you were lucky enough to be raised by like hippies who lived in the woods and followed the codes of nature and things like this, you probably grew up with this sense that, oh, I get loved when I'm a good boy and a good girl, and I get put on the bold step when I'm a bad girl or a bad boy. So we grow up with this sense that like I only get loved when I am doing certain things that please other people. Hence, we're a globe of people pleasers, right? But I think what we're moving towards is we're moving towards an unconditional love, like a real sense that we understand that we're human, we understand that we make mistakes, we understand that we upset people, but in all of that, there is still love because we have so much compassion and wisdom. That's the thing that's developing inside of us as we do all this work. What grows inside of us, like the outcome of healing, is compassion and wisdom. And those two things then allow us to love so much. If you think about all the blockages to love are judgment, resentment, jealousy, things like this. So compassion and wisdom neutralize those things. Like you can't be jealous if you're really wise, you know. So what I think we're moving towards, and I think this is what the future of love is for all of us, is this very unconditional love where we just love each other because we recognize the essence reflected back in the other person. And how that will kind of play out in dating and marriage and things like this, I think it's going to be a bit of a circus, to be honest, but I think we're all going to be having a lot of fun.
Oh, I love that. Even when you were talking about unconditional love and what that's going to look like, I could feel in my heart it was resonating. So, some of the discussion that we were having around the lone wolf, when you're out on yourself journey, kind of doing the healing, doing the work, essentially, that we call it. And then you come back into relation and you're like, you want to connect with community, you want to actually go on a deep dive to love and be loved in relation. Sometimes it's really tricky, and some of the folks that come through my door talk about, well, I find it really challenging because I feel like I'm doing the work, but I'm finding it hard to meet other people that are doing the work. And how do we navigate that when we feel we're on the journey of self discovery to kind of find out who the authentic self is? And you know, do you feel that we will draw in the vibration of kind of where we're at, or how do we navigate that to find a partner that will see us in that, match us with that?
Yeah, totally. I have a couple of things to say on that. I think one is like I remember when I started to eat healthy. When I began to realize, oh, processed food depresses me. Like cheap meats leave me feeling a bit sick inside. I found it harder to eat in cities. When I began to change my diet and I wanted to eat more raw, natural food, I just found it harder to eat. I'd be out walking around and I'd go, God, I can't eat anywhere in this whole street. Or I'd be in an airport and go, I can't eat anything in this whole airport now. So I think a similar sort of thing begins to happen when you start to sort of ch- begin to do the work on yourself. Where you're like, I don't think I can go out with someone who isn't able to talk about their feelings. I don't think I can go out with someone who clearly has a dysfunctional relationship with their own body. I don't think I can do those things anymore. So, so to a certain extent, it can become a little bit harder. But this is just like a rebalancing of patterns. The other thing that I think is important to sort of look at is I don't think we're meant to always be in relationships. I don't think we're always supposed to be in love. Um, I think that sort of society has given us this idea that it is a metric of success to be coupled. And we do that. Do you know what I mean? Like as a single person, like you don't get invites so much to things. You know what I mean? Or when you're in a relationship and you're not married, sometimes you don't get a plus one with the invites because you're just not married. You know what I mean? So we have a lot of kind of like there's a lot of like our convention hasn't quite caught up to the current culture. Um,
Mm.
and so there is a little bit of like I feel there's a bit of a war on singledom. And I think some of that is based on like kind of how advertising works. Advertising seems to have set up this idea that to be in a relationship is the only way to be happy, which is bullshit. So I think there's a combination of things. I think when you start to do the work, it can be really useful to reframe your relationship, just reframe your attitude towards being single, reframe the
Mm.
possibility of being single, and also recognize that, like, oh my God, it's so much better to be single than to be in a horrible relationship. So much
Mm.
better.
Oh my God, absolutely. Because, you can feel very lonely and isolated in a relationship.
Yeah,
It, you don't need to be single to feel those things. You can feel those things within a relationship, which it's so much harder because if you're feeling those things, you almost feel like you're trapped then,
y-
you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's wild. And I love everything you were saying about kind of reframing this feeling of actually you can eat what you want, you can eat when you want, you can go and do what you want. And I was talking to my beautiful therapist about this not so long ago with regard to actually reframing the relationship with self, that you're like, oh my God, I love every moment that I have now. I've no doubt as I do my internal work that I will meet someone and
yeah,
have that exchange. But at the moment, I'm loving my journey as a single man because it's given me the opportunity to do all of these things, to do podcasts, to have these beautiful conversations with you. So you're so right. And I love that you've highlighted that about the reframing rather than feeling like you're missing out by not being in relations. Actually, it's the gifts that you can go on a journey with yourself.
totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm.
And so tell me a little bit about the journey you're going to bring everybody on in June this year. Like, obviously, I don't want to give too much of the game away before you get stuck in, but it would be lovely to just hear a few tips and tricks for people to be able to work with, even just listen to the podcast with regard to how do we strip it back? How do we actually take some actionable steps towards going on a journey of loving ourselves and attracting in the love that our soul yearns for?
Yeah, so I think like first off, it can be really good to have a bit of a sense of how loving energetics work.
Mm.
So what you attract is proportional to the value that you give yourself. So you know what I mean. There's a very interesting dynamic. People talk about like, oh, I keep on bringing in narcissists, or I keep on bringing in people who don't care about me. And it's like, well, that's kind of what you're ordering in the restaurant.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Every time you go into the restaurant, that's what you're ordering. I kind of use the metaphor of a restaurant. It makes sense
Mm.
to people. So it's sort of you need to sort of look at like, well, how am I treating myself? What value do I really assign myself? And how can I just work on improving my own relationship with myself? Yeah, there's a very interesting thing, myself and this is going to sound like really annoying, but myself and my partner, um, we we recently we went to a restaurant and we were sat at a table. I know I've gone off on a huge tangent here, and we both were like, "This isn't a great table." And I said, "We should ask to be moved to a different table." It was a table that was right at the kitchen door, so it was opening all the time, and you could smell like a lot of like different smells. And we're like, "There's better tables. Let's go ask." And so we moved to a better table, and we kind of looked at each other and we are like, "We should always ask to move to a better table. This is our thing for life now. Like, if we're not happy with our table, we're just going to ask for a better table." And so this is kind of my convoluted way of saying this is how the love energetics can work. It's about you looking at your life and going like, okay, like, am I happy with the table that I'm at? Is there a better table? And before I start to even think about who I'm attracting in, how about I just go to a better table? How about I start to organize better tables in my life? And then once I raise my standards, once I raise my values, then what I'm going to meet and what I'm going to attract is going to reflect that. Because everything that we encounter outside of us is a reflection of a relationship inside of us. And so many people, and again, this is the victim energetics at play, that we start to think that other people are responsible for how we feel. That was true when we were children. But as grown ups, as adults, we're responsible for our experience of life. And when we're constantly doing things that don't make us happy, we have to have the courage to go, no, I just don't do these things anymore. And when we bring that attitude into love and dating, it just sets you up to find an energetic match that's satisfying. If you're encountering people who are emotionally unavailable, I think you can own that you're also emotionally unavailable. People are just mirrors. That's all. And when you can begin to see that, it really encourages you to, well, maybe it's a good time that you polished your own mirror and gave a little bit of attention to your own mirror before you're looking for things outside of you to come in. So a big part of it is like learning to just empower ourselves to be to get on our own side, so that when you do finally go out in the world and you're dating and someone says you're amazing, it doesn't make your legs go jelly, because you like go, yeah, I kind of know I'm amazing. Yeah, I've been working hard to get to know I'm amazing. I'm glad you can see that.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know?
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so funny because for years and years I was definitely that person of God, why do I keep meeting emotionally unavailable people of the avoidance? And the day that I
Mm.
realized, oh my God, Tony, you're a big avoidant yourself. That was such a game changer for me. I was like, oh shit. And I was like, well, what the hell are you going to do about that, Tony? And I was like, well, I'm going to sit down and write down every single thing I'm avoiding, even down to avoiding emails, avoiding certain things in my life. I was like, that is now the priority. And I was like, what is the opposite of avoiding? And it's approaching. And I was like, I am leaning fully into approaching everything that makes me feel uncomfortable. And that
Brilliant.
has completely transformed my relationship to myself, but also actually it honors other people. I'm finding that if you actually approach things head on and just have the conversations that are hard, people know where they stand, and
Yeah.
it cultivates better boundaries for you, but also a sense of respect for yourself, but a respect for other people that sometimes we don't honor when we are being avoidant or emotionally unavailable. So
Yeah.
I love everything you're saying. I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
And then Tony, like, I think the big part of it is just like when you do this stuff, um, like I think we're about like the guts of 100 people signed up. So it's like sort of, it's like it's a community, and you're going to get so much support from that community. And imagine like you're going on this 30-day journey of cultivating love and then experimenting with your own magnetism in the world. Like, and it's bit like everyone in the group is like, go do it, go do it.
Oh, I love this. And this is the thing about community. I love this supportive element. And it's been so
Yeah.
nice. So I signed up a couple of weeks ago and I've basically told all of my friends who are single and in relationships, I was like, we need to all do this together and hold each other accountable on our journey of love, you know? So it's not just for
So
people who are single, is it?
not at all. Like I think it's sort of I actually think it's like it's ideal for in if you're in a relationship too, because um increasing your sense of magnetism already in a relationship is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like learning to sort of take responsibility for your experience in a relationship. I think that's one of the lazinesses that kind of creep into relationship where you're just like, if only my partner would do this, then I'd be happy.
Mm.
Or if only my partner would be this, then I wouldn't be so miserable. And it's like, well, why don't you own the whole relationship and step out of this place of feeling disempowered or passively waiting for somebody else
Yeah.
to do something when you can actually just step up,
Yeah. Oh my God.
you know?
Yes, 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 yes. And even I see this even in healthcare and the people who come through the door. Some folks have no idea what tablets they're on. The orange tablet, I take half a blue tablet, and I'm like, empower yourself. Step into your autonomy and own your health. Don't put the pressure on a crumbling healthcare system. I was like, let's own all of this and let's actually take really positive steps forward to improving your physical well-being, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, your energetic health. And like you were saying, it's about taking it head on and owning the autonomy with regard to how can I change my world and the world around me myself rather than waiting on things to change for me. And I love I really really love that you've highlighted that because I see it in so many facets of
Yeah,
healthcare, you know, of well-being care, you know.
yeah, 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 yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
And so, Connor, just as we're finishing up, I just wanted to ask you for the 30-day challenge that starts at the beginning of June, how do people sign up? How do people kind of get involved?
Yeah, you can sign up on my website, which is called Meditating with Connor. You can go to my Instagram. There's a link in my bio. Conor Creighton is my name there. Maybe we'll put something in the notes beneath this. And that's it. It's like to it's €60. Um, it's the first time I've done this sort of challenge, so there's a certain experimental flair to it, as there is to a lot of the things that I do. But the idea is, I just see so many people who I work with are suffering in relationship and suffering around the theme of love. I feel I've developed a process and a method that can really help relieve a lot of that suffering and give you the power back. So many of us are waiting to be chosen. I think the idea of this course is like you're going to choose yourself,
Mhm.
and then whatever happens is just ice cream on top of that. Um, and
And
that's
that's
it.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Connor. And for anybody listening, obviously Connor's given his website details there. He has an absolutely fantastic podcast that goes deep into some of these themes as well, the Hacking Love podcast, and an online course as well. There's 6 lessons with that course, I believe, and it's all really, really powerful, powerful work. And Connor, I'm so, so, so grateful to you coming on to just share all of your wisdom and your beautiful heart energy that you cultivated too. So thank you so much for being here. And with love from my heart to yours, as always, have a beautiful week, Dr. Anthony.